Good day, viewers. Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Speaking Plainly with Thabo Makweya. Today, we are joined by none other than the visionary, dynamic CEO of Vedanta Zinc International, Ms. Deshnee Naidoo. Ms. Deshnee Naidoo, welcome to the Northern Cape. Welcome to Kimberley in particular. We know you, one of us now, in view of the fact that you are in the Namaqualand area. And we are quite happy to have you. You're the first high-profile interview that we're having with someone from the private sector in the province. We're hoping to have a few of these interviews. But welcome once more, and can you please tell our viewership who Deshnee Naidoo is, married, with kids?
Okay, Thabo, thank you so much for having me. It's a very humbling introduction there, and I'm sure after this you're going to do incredibly well. And thank you again for the invitation. In terms of who Deshnee Naidoo is, first and foremost, I am a mother of 3 daughters. I am the wife to Vera Naidoo. I'm a chemical engineer by background. I've been in the mining industry my entire career. Started off with Anglo American, and then for the last 5 years I've been with Vedanta Resources, heading up the Zinc International business, in which our Black Mountain mine in the Kaima region is one of the divisions within that business. But a very long, almost 20-year career in the mining industry.
No, thanks. And why mining? We have this challenge that mining is always seen as an industry for men, and we have very few women, especially in the position that you have. Why mining?
Okay, so first I think because you said it was mainly for men, that's probably what attracted me to go against the norm.
No.
I'm kidding, but I think that's definitely maybe something that inspired me to stay in it. Very opportunistic, actually, Thabo. I have very humble roots. I grew up in a township in Phoenix, in KwaZulu-Natal. I did well enough in matric to have attracted a bursary. I had a bursary with Anglo American. I think other than choosing a career, I chose a company that could offer me a bursary and then decided on what to study. I then studied chemical engineering, and through the bursary had to give Anglo American a few years in-service training, which I then did in Rustenburg. But I think you could say that the mining bug then caught me. I loved the industry, and I loved the industry for the pure reason that we can make the impact that we do. And if you're doing it responsibly, you can make an even bigger impact. In terms of the masculinity and the fact that we still look like a masculine industry, I think I can proudly say that over the last 20 years we've made huge strides in attracting and retaining women within this sector. And I take my role as a female CEO within the sector quite seriously in terms of what I can do to improve on our numbers.
And at a practical level, we also learned that you championing the women in mining agenda. What would you say are the main challenges that we are faced with? And I think coming closer to home, our experience is that people are quite reluctant. They're probably reluctant because we don't have a lot of people to take their hands and make sure that they achieve those objectives. But also taking opportunity of the fact that this is Women's Month,
Sure.
We would be happy for you to share with us what your challenges are in attracting women into mining, and what partnerships do you think can be formed, especially with government in a province like the Northern Cape?
Okay, so if you ask me about challenges, I'd almost put them into 3 buckets. The first bucket is societal. I think there's, irrespective of the progress that we continue to make on the ground, there's still a lot of societal pressure in terms of what the role of women in society should be. So if we want to solve it there, we actually need the men in society to start enabling women to take on more responsibility. That's the first bucket. The second bucket I'd actually talk about is is on the ground in terms of creating an enabling environment in mining. Mining traditionally has not created an enabling environment, from as simple as structurally not having sufficient facilities for women either in underground mines or in surfaces. And then, without having that kind of enabling environment, women have not been as clear in terms of what their role and ultimate career paths can look like. Linked to that, and because there hasn't been as many women coming through the ranks, there's not so many role models for women to follow. Okay, and then I think the third bucket is as simple as mindset. I think without the first two enablers, women continue to struggle with the mindset that it is in fact possible. Now, in terms of the second part of what you asked me, and what can be done, and partnerships through with the government in particular, I mean, firstly through schools. I think there's a lot we can do to actually make mining more attractive, not just for women, for men and women, because I'm also seeing a decline there. I think there's a lot we can do as industry with government to make sure that mining is made more real in terms of curriculum, as well as visits to mines early on. In terms of partnerships, I think there's a lot more we can do at a tertiary level to make sure that we don't just partner with grads, but that we partner during the undergrad stage to make sure that mining is being seen as a viable career choice. And I come back to this point, that needs to be an issue for both men and women in the industry.
Now, we appreciate that, because more often than not, in fact, there's a huge debate now on whether the country is ready to have a female president. So that stigma will always be there with some of our very negative people who are also sometimes, unfortunately, have men who feel challenged by women in the boardroom. And I think it's a real challenge, because just the fact that people are asking whether women, a woman is ready to take over as president of the country is a challenge in itself. And in the mining industry in this province particularly, we struggle to find women with your drive, with your passion for mining. And we would really like to see, practical steps of ensuring that women do become part of the mainstream. There's this argument, some are saying mining is a dying industry, and other people are saying, no, it's a sunrise industry. And, so I think the sooner we start with these initiatives, the better. But then the other challenge we find is, unlike what you are doing, going out there, prophesying and encouraging women to get involved, women, especially at your regional level, provincial level, are good at shutting out other women. I mean, government took a very bold step to say, as far as the provincial legislature is concerned, 60% in this province of the members of the cabinet are women. And we would like to also encourage people like yourself to maybe also engage with the leadership in the province to make sure that they are more active in doing these things. And I'm raising it, I know it sounds negative, but we're 20 odd years into the new government, but we can only count so many Deshnee Naidoos, in the mainstream of mining. I think it's a real challenge, but we just want to make the point that we really support your vision, we support your drive. Just yesterday we had a meeting with Bridget Radebe, and we told her we will be talking to you, and she said, no, she's all behind you. And we just want to say, as men born from women also, that we really encourage. We are impressed by your noble initiatives, and we really encourage it. But we would like to come back. We will be watching the space to see, especially in the Northern Cape, how many women actually get empowered. And maybe just a follow-up question, at your mines in the Northern Cape, what would you say the percentage of women in key positions? I know it's still early in the day, but I think one would like to see real practical examples of how we are going to ensure that women do become part of the mainstream in the mining sector.
Okay. So Thabo, you've said a lot in those few minutes there. I want to respond to some of that before I respond to what's happening on the mines on a practical side. I think firstly the question you asked is the country ready for a female president? I think we were ready 10 years ago. Okay? It's all about mindset. And I'm also a firm believer that leadership is not something that is, given, it's something that's taken. So I think and if any government is ready, it should be South Africa, because exactly as you said, not only is the Northern Cape Cabinet has a 60% majority of women, but our national cabinet has a 50% ratio. So I think we are far more prepared than most governments in the world. Although over a short span of time, I think the proactiveness that I've seen in this government and certain leaders in South Africa has actually been a lot better than some of the other geographies that I operate in. So we are ready. What we need right now is a few women to step up to the plate, okay? And that's something we can all encourage. You mentioned something about that syndrome of women not necessarily supporting women. I've seen men not supporting men either, right? So it's all about making sure that women have an enabling environment. We can go into more examples maybe after this question, but on the ground itself. So firstly, in order to make sure that women feel that they're part of an organization that cares, that recognizes their ability and supports what they are doing, it starts off with having some of the basics in place. So I've really, over the last 4 years, made sure that we have the right enabling policies. Okay, policies are important for two reasons. Firstly, it's structural in terms of how a woman can be brought in and how a career can then be progress. Secondly, it makes the playing rules clear. Then it's not, she got an opportunity because so-and-so favored her. It becomes a level playing field. So I think that was the first thing that we did. The second thing is, making sure that you don't only encourage the recruitment of women, but you make sure that you're giving sufficient opportunities for women to come up the chain. So in our organization, and this is what I've been very inspired of over the years, is our executive chairman, Anil Agarwal. He's a champion of diversity himself. So let me tell you how this works, Thabo. A couple of years ago, we had an exco meeting, group exco meeting. There's 8 executives across the world. It was a Saturday, I'll never forget it. And he said all he's discussing today is gender diversity. And he didn't say, I'm going to give you guys 2 years to set certain targets and achieve it. It was Saturday. He said on Monday, I want to see a plan from each one of you on how you're going to get to 30% gender diversity on your excos. Okay? So it takes that kind of leadership to make sure that these are not just targets that we will kind of kick down the road, play for touch, that these are targets that are genuinely driven from the top. Okay? So what we then had to come up with was very innovative ways. And I decreed a couple of years ago across our business that we will never recruit another man into the business. Okay, so I didn't mean it. Okay, for everyone out there, it was to make sure that our general managers and my leadership team would try extra hard to find a woman before we settled for a man in the room. Okay, that wasn't policy, that was actually a general guideline. And I was quite encouraged by the way the men in the organization then took it up. Okay, now not all of that recruitment in the last couple of years worked out, and then we've had recruitment that hasn't worked out. But every time I have someone in the team telling me, Deshnee, we hired it didn't work out, I remind them of the fact that the industry has hired how many men that have not been successful in their roles? So what? Give her a chance. Okay? Then the other thing we did innovatively is that we encouraged deputy positions. So yes, a man is in the role today, but how wonderful to keep him under pressure whilst giving a woman an opportunity. So what we then did was created the deputy positions for certain roles, where I would then tell the man that, listen, this is your role, fantastic, I'd like to give so-and-so an opportunity. So he almost relieves himself of 25% of his job, takes on a stretch assignment for her, or for the business, and then gives this woman an opportunity to have a seat at the table. Okay? Again, not all of it has worked, but how innovative. And the last opportunity we took with the Gamsberg project, now operation, which we're incredibly proud of, we had an opportunity of starting something from afresh. So, a lot of reasons for why people cannot do things is because of the legacy issues and the baggage that we come with as an industry. So we started this plant from nothing Today, over 30% of our workforce on Hamsburg plant are all women. Amazing, right? Because you can do it. But what's more impressive is outside of attracting women, we've attracted really young talent. The average age of the workforce across Hamsburg, we have about 800 people now, is 31 years old. Okay, and that's how we have to think. So across the South African operations, because the businesses that I run span across South Africa as well as Namibia right now, across the South African operations, the total numbers about 16% women across the organization. But what I'm measuring is not just the percentage, but in leadership positions alone. Okay, at Hamsburg, like I said, it's high, but across the board, it's over 18%. In my exco itself, it's over 25%. Okay, so we're definitely making strides. But more than diversity and youth, what I love about our organization is that we are completely transformed. The rest of the exco come from all over South Africa and India, because we are an Indian company. But that is what's going to make us progressive in terms of differentiation, is that we are creating an organization where people from all walks of life feel that this is an inclusive environment to allow them to thrive in. So what I'm talking about, Thabo, in very simple terms, is about creating an ecosystem.
No, thanks. We're quite impressed with your practical response to the questions, especially the fact that you'd like to encourage that from a very early stage we get women involved and remove them from the stereotypes that mining is a men industry and so forth. But we really appreciate the...
You know what I love about what I've seen in terms of the change in mindsets of some of the senior men and actually junior men as well, is how the language and the narrative is starting to change. So we recruited recently a drafts person, a typical draftsman, but she's a lady. And you can see now everyone introduces her as the drafts person. So it's starting to happen.
I would certainly like to see that in our lifetimes.
Of course.
Yeah. Now, I think moving on to the next question, and you spoke of ecosystems, we can move on to the mine. We know it took quite a while for the Hamsburg project to get off ground, and congratulations for your tenacity and discussions. We've had similar discussions with the former premier of the province, whom we know was quite actively involved in ensuring that some of the obstacles are removed. But we're particularly impressed by the fact that although it's very early in the life of your mine, we're already looking beyond just the zinc mine as it stands there. We are told that you're also looking at other downstream prospects like I think fertilizers and so forth. Can you please share with us the why are you so bold when all our lives in this province we've been struggling to get the other players, whether it's in the manganese or iron ore industries, including the diamonds, to have downstream initiatives set up? Yeah, we failed, I must be honest with you. When we had initial discussions with your company, we were told that the preference for the smelter may be Scorpion because we already have some presence there. But what is, we are really pleased, but what has given you the confidence to take such a bold step and say we are going to do it all at the same time?
So excellent question. So firstly, this ore deposit, was discovered over 40 years ago. In fact, the joke amongst the team, because many of us are young, it's fantastic to be executing a project that's older than us. And let me tell you why we chose to execute this project. So we're a very large zinc player in India. So in India, we produce over 1 million tons of zinc metal. Thabo, that's a significant number because the market today is over 14 million tons. And we are the second largest producer globally for zinc. And like I said, we produce zinc metal. Our chairman, Anil Agarwal, loved the prospect of the zinc assets that Anglo American was selling, that he then decided to buy for two reasons. Firstly, we had a zinc play in India, and he wanted to geographically diversify, and these assets were attractive for him. Firstly, because South Africa is a mining geography, India isn't. So he wanted to invest in a geography that he can start to take skills back into India to help grow our company there, number one. But number two, Hamsburg project wasn't just a large-scale deposit. It's actually one of the largest undeveloped zinc deposits in the world. Okay? Now here's what's fundamentally different to our approach versus other corporates. We are owned by an entrepreneur. Okay? And therein leads to the DNA that we have. He incentivizes us as an EXCO team on risk-taking. Right? His mantra to me is, Deshnee, waste anything, just don't waste time. Okay? In addition to that, he always says, you know what, make the decision. If it doesn't work, I'll support you. If you don't make the decision, I'll fire you. It is that DNA that differentiates us to do something bold. Okay? But it's not all about risk. It's about calculated risk. So the reason that we are dreaming as big, that in terms of what we want to do in the Kaimar area for the Hamsburg project, is because we have this track record in India. In India, we've built mines that now generate over 12 million tons of ore to generate this 1 million ton of metal with 5 smelter units, exactly the same type that we want to build here. In India, we generate 10,000 megawatts, a third of what this country uses, all captive. So all our smelters, and we're also in aluminium, are driven off captive power. So it might sound risky for us in South Africa, but we've got the expertise and we've got the track record in India. Okay? In terms of why we are pushing this agenda, because our chairman does not believe in selling concentrate. He wants to sell a fully beneficiated product. In the first instance, it's metal. Okay? So when we talk about the next phase and the smelter leading to this wave of industrialization and beneficiation, we're saying that we have the vision to produce metal. And when you produce metal, you need power. And given the various IPPs in the region, I think there's scope for some involvement for renewable. So that is what makes us excited there. But we're saying that once we can unleash the production of metal, nothing stops either smaller SMMEs or larger galvanizers from getting closer to source to make their businesses work. But as you touched on, this site will produce a substantial amount of sulfuric acid on a daily basis because the ore is actually a sulfide ore. Okay? When that happens, we then can use some of the phosphates in the area to look at fertilizer generation. Okay? But in order for this vision to be unlocked, we need an infrastructure and logistics solution that allows us to work, because as you and I know, you cannot be transporting acid, especially sulfuric acid, at the concentrations that we will produce. So that is why we need some of these other facilities to be attracted close to us as possible so that we can start to unlock this. And you know what, Thabo, if you have to close your eyes and dream, and I'm a firm believer of dream, even if we settle for somewhere in between of the ultimate vision, it'll still be better than where we are today. If I look at Khalakadi and the other manganese producers, we produce manganese in the region too. Okay? Now the region also produces iron ore. Zinc currently is used, about 60% of the world's zinc goes into galvanizing steel. This country has tried for long to make the steel industry work. Not today, but when this economy starts to grow on the back of infrastructure development, and we are ready to take steel manufacturing seriously, then you've got the ingredients all in the Northern Cape to make that happen. You've got the iron ore, you've got the manganese, okay? We've got the power, because we are blessed with renewable energy generation in the Northern Cape, and we can come and protect that steel with our zinc.
I think you've touched on the nerve of the beneficiation challenge in the province. Like we've been saying, there has been attempts, especially from government side, to engage the private sector. from iron ore to manganese, but we haven't had the response that we see your company very boldly coming to say to the industry, here we are ready, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're doing it. And I think it's really, we really appreciate the initiative and the boldness, and I think to your major shareholder as well, we'd really like to compliment him for the bold steps that you're taking in the province. You, for the first phase, you're investing $400 million.
$400 million, over 5 billion rand. So that's happened. So that money has been spent. The project has been built. In fact, it's already now in operation. So that's done. I think if you asked me 3 years ago, how confident are you? I would say, yeah, I'm confident, but maybe not quite there. The fact that we've now built phase 1, it's on the ground in an area where there was nothing previously, tells us that actually we now have an established project track record. Phase 2 is a far easier decision for me because we built phase 1 having phase 2 in mind. So phase 1 today is a 4 million ton ore producer, which will produce 250,000 tons of metal in concentrate. So I told you the zinc market is 14 million tons. So this is significant, okay? But I bet you didn't know this fact, Thabo. That plant that we've built in the Northern Cape, Knockal, is the largest single stream zinc plant in the world today. Amazing. So what phase 2 will entail is doubling up of the current mine, okay, and we already have the mine plan, and a second module of the current plant. So it'll be a far easier execution because it's almost repeating what we have already done.
And the SEZ, the zinc cluster, can you please elaborate?
So yeah, I think let me just tell you a little bit about why we're excited outside of the beneficiation, etc. Our chairman, who I've spoken about a couple of times now, he's a philanthropist. So 75% of his wealth goes back into many of the societies. 75% of his personal wealth has been committed mainly to initiatives around women and children. Okay, so let me explain how some of the reviews in Vedanta are done. He will ask us firstly, where are we on safety? Where are we on production? And then where are we on the numbers, the financials, the EBITDA, because that is what matters, right?
Yeah, sure.
When we don't generate our numbers as CEOs of the business, he relates it back to the work that as a company we cannot do for the women and children that we support. Okay? Now many corporates are claiming to talk about business with purpose. We are living it. Our entire business model is around business with purpose. So one of the other reasons that drives us, especially in the region that we operate within the Northern Cape, is that as much as we make, we must put it back into the communities in which we operate in. And you and I know that the Kaima and the Greater Namakwa region is in dire need of this kind of economic stimulus. That's the other thing that's, when you ask us why are we so bold, I'm bold because I know the impact, that if we get this right, the impact that we can make is absolutely huge.
And I think the fact that the province has such a small population should make it easy for us to really deal with the unemployment more decisively. Now we really appreciate it. So the broader thinking on the SEZ, I'm also asking because the province is in the process of getting designation for a solar SEZ.
Correct.
But the advice we got from the DTI is that it would make more sense if it was a more inclusive,
absolutely, a more integrated SEZ.
And I think linked to that, it's also maybe a direct question. Would you be willing to collaborate with the province in ensuring that you have one multi-focused SEZ that focus probably on your solar and some of the things that you have in mind? And I would still like you to unpack exactly what the zinc cluster
could look like.
Yes.
Okay. So first, the excellent question. You would recall when we inaugurated Gamsberg in February, we were very privileged to have had the state president inaugurate. Okay. Now, there was a link there. last October, you would remember that the President's Office ran this investment summit.
Yes.
Okay, it was in October last year. I pledged at that summit what we were going to do for phase 1, phase 2, as well as the smelter project. So we were honored to have the president there, but he was there for 2 reasons: to hold us account to what we said we would do, but he was also there so that we can hold him to account for what he said he would do to enable the next round of investments. In his speech, he spoke about how government can further enable that, and what he proposed, which has then happened, is creating a government task team to enable this investment. That is how the concept of the SEZ was actually born. Okay, because we can go after a lot. I mean, to make the smelter project work, you'd of course need security of power as well as stability of price. I mean, that's an obvious one, right? Then we would also need some certainty around how the asset that we produced is, we do have an offtake for. We would also need fiscal stability, certainty, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the SEZ came into it. Because I also said, exactly as you pointed out, if you're going to beneficiate in this country, I know government has incentives for it. So how do we partner, work with government to make sure that this project and this region is set up to benefit from some of those incentives? That's how the concept of the SEZ was born. Okay, because that already creates a huge financial enablement. But back to what you said, I mean, not only was the SEZ then linked to what it could do for a smelter in the region, but it was also to create a stimulus for other businesses. So where we are right now, and I'm happy with some of the cabinet restructuring in terms of combination of DTI with economic development, because it has created a one-stop shop for us. We are now working with Minister Ibrahim Patel and his teams to make sure that this can be a regional SEZ. And the region right now, or the thoughts right now, is to look at a Kaima SEZ. Okay, so it's a start. I think it's excellent. And for me, having some of the other challenges that we've had in the region, in terms of building additional housing, infrastructure that we needed, the industrialization of this region would automatically make some of that happen. So that's how it came about. That's where we are right now, and I am totally open to integrating as many industries into this as possible.
Just the last question from my side. We often say that local government is the hands and feet of government, but from outside, our observation is that the way the skills are spread across government, you'd find you're more skilled people in central government, to some extent in provincial government, but when you get to local government level, you may not find a sense of readiness. And I also mention it because we recently visited Postmansburg, where Kumba has got huge expansions. But you find that the municipality does not have the necessary capacity to give the support that's necessary, whatever support is required for the mines to thrive. And I think a debate that is emerging in the province, and we've had the discussions with the Premier, will continue to have those, is how they are going to capacitate local government to ensure that when an investor like you come, there's a readiness from their side to assist from day one. How are you finding it at that level, and are there moves afoot to, if any problems exist, to find solutions to those?
So I can say I think I'm experiencing the same challenges as the rest of the industry. Whereas where there is a will and an intent from local government to support, there isn't the capacity to enable. So that is something we have to solve. I think very much like corporate, and by the way, one of the meetings I'm here in Kimberley to have is to see the new Premier. As with corporates, I think government needs to reassess what each province needs to do, and then to rethink how they capacitate their local government officials to enable. Okay? My concern, if we don't get it right, is I can build, it's one-off. What's going to happen thereafter? And I'll give you an example. I mean, as part of the Hamsburg project, we've had to take care of everything without partnerships in that phase. So we built all the houses ourselves, okay, which is absolutely fine. We built a 38-kilometer pipeline from the Pella pump station to support water. Sedibeng should have come to the party to do that work. Firstly, they said, looking at your timelines, no ways we do it. Secondly, we don't have the resources. But my concern right now is we built it and handed it back to them to now run. If that municipality is not capacitated, we will have a risk. So that's where the issues are, right? And similarly, from an ESCOM side, we also built the transmission line that we needed to support this project. So I think I've had enough of a taste on phase 1 to now have a far more focused discussion with the Premier to say, well, these are the challenges I've had. I have overcome it. But if you want to assist us further enable phase 2 and a smelter project, this is the kind of support we need from government. But I have to categorically say I have enjoyed the support in the province. From, as you mentioned, Ms. Sylvia Lucas in her previous 2 capacities, even when she was MEC of DENK, and then the Premier, we've only but had support. But what I have not had the joy of is the actual capacity to help execute.
I see. Now, ma'am, thanks a million for your time, and we wish you all the best in your endeavors, both in your role as the ambassador for women in mining, as well as CEO. I must say, this is one of the best interactions we've had as people who have a dream for the province that things will sort themselves out. And we also excited that you are meeting with our Honorable Premier. He has shared with us his visions, and we think he has got a very good plan for the province, and with people like yourself, this province can only grow from strength to strength. But all of the best with raising your kids, and we worry that you may not have enough time to spend with them given the challenges that you have. And we wish your company the best in their endeavors in the province.
Thabo, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. I personally take a lot of joy from sharing our story, because I feel the more people hear it, the more it becomes the reality that we are driving towards. I think based on the theme of this interview, the only way to unlock the vision is through partnerships. And the more we have these conversations, the more we put this onto the radar of the right people, I'm very confident that we can do this. And then coming back to it being Women's Month, and you touched on a very close issue for me in terms of family and life. I just want to put it out there that I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in integration. I'm a mother and I'm a CEO 24/7. Depending on where I am, I decide what to turn on more versus what to turn off less. And I encourage women to have an open mind and be as flexible as they control their own careers. But I want to support almost every woman in the province to reach her dream.
I must say, even as a man, I'm inspired, and I think we have a lot to learn from you. And thanks for your time. And
thank you so much.
We look forward to having you again on our platform.
With absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.